In the 2.5 years this channel has existed, I've covered quite a few devices. However, I haven't shown you all of the devices I've tried. For this, though it will not remove the blemish upon my honor, nor the shame upon my house, I offer my deepest apologies. This is the box of shame. Inside are the worst devices I've ever seen and never shown. Some of them are devices for home automation, some are components for other systems. They've all failed miserably, or been of such a poor build standard that the quality control department at Boeing would notice. I'm going to tell you all about these devices, including the single worst smart device I have seen in my life, but first I'm going to explain why I'm sitting where I'm sitting for those of you who know I'm not sitting where I normally sit. This is the new designated workbench for fiddling with things on the channel. This will make it easier not only to see what I'm fiddling with, because it's not on a pattern texture green cloth, but it will also make it easier for me because it's right over there. I will get to the berating of devices in a couple moments. I just want to give a quick explanation of the studio rearrangement and some info about what's next for the channel. Then I'll quality shame some innocent low-bar bulk manufacturers and the companies that sell their crap. I moved my entire retro PC collection that used to be to my right to a secret warehouse underneath the pool table here. I also defeated the amorphous blob that was my console collection. One reason was space. Another was that the studio was getting difficult to work in. This is because I don't believe in putting projects in storage or disassembling them after I shoot videos, in addition to some of my regular occupation being carried out here. In regards to my retro and vintage collection, I'd like to give you some brief backstory. I'll get back to the main topic momentarily, bear with me. I had a much larger collection of retro PCs, game consoles, and games that took many years to accumulate, but lost all of it in a house fire a little over 10 years ago. This left me pained every time I saw something at an auction site or at a yard sale and thought I'd love to add that to the collection. Because of this, I avoided, or thought I avoided, collecting anything for many years. Then one day I looked around my first home office and saw that I'd inadvertently started a collection of game consoles again, starting with that NES. So I casually collected more until we bought this house. When I saw this room, I knew that I wanted to rebuild my collections again. Why am I telling you all of this? Well, it's the reason everything was so randomly stacked against the wall for so long. In my excitement, I didn't really plan how I was going to store and display all of the stuff, so things got placed where they fit for a while. I still don't really know how it will all finally look, but I knew I needed to reclaim my space and my sanity. That is why I've rearranged the studio. It gives me a way to do all the various types of videos I do mostly from this space, which is good because at the moment it's being northeast outside, and while I do appreciate seeing the beauty of the change in seasons, I do not appreciate experiencing most of them. That brings me to one last point before I dig into the box of shame. I would like to start doing videos on more complex or larger devices and builds, and maybe even do remote shoots and the like. If you don't already know, YouTube allows a channel to offer memberships and other small perks once it reaches 1,000 subscribers and 3,000 watch hours within the last year, or 3 million shorts views in 90 days. Channels don't get ad revenue until 1,000 subscribers and either 4,000 watch hours in the last year or 10 million shorts views in 90 days. At the time I wrote the script for this video, the channel had 1,951 subscribers and 2,911 watch hours. That means I'll be able to offer memberships and membership perks like extra content, behind the camera stuff, Q&A, and so on very soon, unless everyone stops watching entirely all at once, which is always a possibility. I want to make watching this channel worth every viewer's time. Having a budget to work with that isn't entirely out of pocket will eventually enable me to go beyond just the devices I would buy even if I didn't have the channel and incrementally increase the quality of the videos themselves. So that's where I think all of this is heading, and one reason I rearranged the studio. Now, let's talk about my junk. This is the LaView, some model I'm sure. It's a bulb camera. I've never had super high expectations for this device for a number of obvious reasons, but I did think it was a novel enough idea to give it a try. While it did work, there were several issues. Picture quality was actually reasonable for the price, but in the places that were useful to have the camera, the view was obscured in some way by the fixture. Then there's the fact that you cannot use this camera offline as an IP camera. I haven't opened this up yet to see if there's a debug connection that I can use to get to the firmware, but eventually I will. The box of shame contains quite a few devices I haven't talked about because they come from a company I usually love. The devices this company manufactures are really top-notch. However, many of the devices they brand but do not themselves make are pretty bad. That brings us to this bulbous waste of materials, money, and transatlantic shipping space, the Shelly Vintage G125. I have 2 of these, and initially I was going to purchase more, but they weren't in stock. That was a blessing I would not realize for about a month. Both of them failed. This one lasted for 3 or 4 days, or maybe it's the other one. The point is, they failed in an amazingly short time. But this is not the worst device in the box. This is the Shelly Vintage A19, and this is the Shelly Vintage ST21. Because the G125 was still functioning and looked absolutely wonderful when it was working, I bought all of these for thematic reasons. They all lasted less than a week. One by one, they just stopped working. At first, I thought it was because they were in fixtures that put them in this orientation, which could possibly cause overheating of the electronics, but I also had ones that were in fixtures in this orientation. This is from the Smart Apartment video, and I used it for testing for a while. I had 2 A19s in it, which failed within a couple days. I still think the issue is heat related because all 20 of my Shelly Duos are still going strong after several months. The base on the Duo is heavier, which is probably due to a large thermal mass used for heat dissipation, possibly ceramic, and they are all mounted in down-facing fixtures. At some point, I'm going to take these apart and investigate, but I'll get to that in a later video. Anyway, an average lifespan of about 48 hours seems pretty bad. There aren't many smart home situations worse than a light bulb that only lasts a couple days, especially if you find this out while you're in the shower, bathtub, or seeing a man about a horse. But this is not the worst device in this box. This is the Shelly H&T, which I believe stands for Halt and Think Before You Buy It. This device did not die immediately or at all for the short time that I used it, but it did simply stop reporting regularly and started having Wi-Fi connection issues immediately after being more than 15 feet from the Wi-Fi access point. When connected to USB power through a special base you could purchase for a few dollars, it behaved a little better at a longer distance but still remained useful to me for only a few hours. I have only had 2 of these, so they may be from a bad batch, but I doubt the best are much better. At a few hours of effective life, this is still not the worst device in this box. Before I get to the last and worst item in the box of shame, I want to take a moment to remind everyone that this channel operates on the whims of the algorithm, and the only way to appease this savage popularity bot is by feeding it sweet, sweet thumbs. Digital thumbs. Please don't send your thumbs to YouTube. And those only require a minute amount of force applied to the button on your mouse while hovering over a digital digit somewhere in that general region. And now, the moment you might have been vaguely interested in. This is the worst device in the box of shame, the Shelly Door and Window 2. I bought 6 of these, one for an initial test of a few weeks, then more later. Of the 5 I purchased later, 5 of them shorted out as soon as I installed the batteries. Interestingly, the first one I purchased actually lasted for a few months, but only reported correctly about half the time, then it just stopped working. I want to be clear about something. I have had a lot of luck with the relay products offered under the Shelly brand by Alterco Robotics, as well as the dimmers, motion sensors, duo light bulbs, plugs, surprisingly, and this version of the button. I haven't tried the newer ones yet. I love the Shelly devices I have that work. I didn't expect much from these smaller, cheaper devices, but these vintage series bulbs broke my heart. I love the way they look and the way the bulb itself feels, if they could have just been as robust as the Duo. I will be taking all of these devices apart for a breakdown at some point in future videos, and I'm certain there will be more additions to the box of shame. If you have a topic or device you'd like me to explore, let me know. You can, of course, comment on the video or join the Discord server, which is more or less the only thing I check anymore. I don't bother with social media. Also, let me know what you think of the new arrangement. Anyway, thanks for listening to me ramble, and I do hope you'll join me for future videos as I continue building and exploring smarter circuits.